Hey, what do you want? Call Cat McKinnon.
Hi.
Are you trying to sign in?
Yes, it says the host is waiting to start the meeting.
Huh. Because on my end, I have it started and it says that you're connecting to audio and we cannot hear you yet.
Okay, let's try. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure you weren't like something wrong.
No, I was just going to the bathroom.
Okay. I'm like, wait, is this fucked up? Is my background look okay? Should I do the I could do the Starry Night. What is it? The fucking Northern Lights.
Yeah, let's try that.
But
You are being recorded.
I know I've been being recorded for a hot sec.
Okay, so I've got, oh yeah, great. People can see this.
Watch this. Check that out. Is that distracting?
Hold on, I'm gonna try my sound. There we go. Can you try to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Be fine.
Do we like my background or should I go like blur?
Oh, I mean, I like the psychedelic nature of it. Wait, let me see your blurred background.
Acting though, because I'm like really into it.
I mean, it is distracting, but it's also very pleasing. So
I'm here. We're doing it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna send full force. We'll see if anybody joins, you know. I made a cute image for,
I'm just gonna make sure that there's nobody trying to get to us.
I mean, while we're sitting here, recording ourselves. Would you stop? I need to make a post for tonight. Do we have just a solid list of all our teachers? Like right.
I just made one, oddly enough. Well, we have a list of all of our teachers just in that document.
I just need it for an Instagram post, like the easiest way to have that text emailed to me because my phone's so fucked.
You know, I can just copy and paste it and text it to you.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Can we edit this Zoom recording?
Oh yeah, this just saves on the cloud, and then I delete all this shit out.
Okay, great.
Are there any other people? I mean, we could. Oh, here's Elliot Rosenberg. Oh, this is Katie, or what's her name? Kelly. Did I wait for a second? Okay, I'll send you what I just. Made. It's kind of cute, and I need to put it on our Forced to Field Instagram.
So how would you like it?
Uh,
How would you like a list of teachers to you?
um, email, maybe emailed. Do it email.
Emailed? Okay.
Yeah, so that way you can do it from the computer. Okay, I'm gonna admit this girl here. A second, should I admit her? Anyway, the thing I just sent it to you, this picture that I made is cute. It's like I put some of his graphic over a picture and then put
Okay,
the
cool.
logo. So it looks a little different than what we did yesterday. And then I'm gonna put like a list of the teachers today and then say that tickets are released tomorrow, you know?
Okay. Okay, here, let me just try to do this really quickly while we're waiting for everybody. Do you care if they're alphabetical or not?
I think I lost her. She stopped being an invite. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on a meeting right now. What are you doing, buddy? Okay. What do you need? I don't know what that means. Say like I'm on. The mic on your speaker doesn't work. Okay. You want my phone? You didn't ask for the phone. You asked for the computer. Okay, that girl was here. Now she's gone.
Oh,
I didn't admit her because we were talking. I mean, she only waited maybe a minute. Here she is again. Yeah, I'll admit her. Say like,
Okay.
you gotta come grab my phone, buddy. Please shut the door.
I'm just gonna open up our Kajabi really quick.
You have their and did you get their Instagrams and stuff or their tags or anything?
For some of them, yeah.
Oh, look at this.
I'll put them in there in that list I send you.
Because that's what I was thinking as I'll like list them out with their tag next to it. Hello.
Elliot, we can see that you're there, but you're a large, dark, blank space. I don't know if you can hear us or not. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. This is not Elliot. This is Kelly, his girlfriend, and he puts tape over our the video portion, so I will be black.
Okay, no worries. We just want to make sure you can hear us and see us.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, then Kelly, we're gonna get started in just a minute here. But the way we usually do this is, have people introduce themselves. If you're the one person on this call,
Okay.
then basically we might just have you introduce yourself. But we'd love to know kind of what questions you have, especially in relationship to any part of the course, but especially the first couple of weeks. Oh, you're the one, Kelly Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I saw you busily inside of quizzes all today, and I'm like, oh, someone's catching up before live. But yeah, so if you have something in particular that you're into, please just let us know. We're gonna kind of go through water extractions and some ratios and stuff like that. But you can just ask questions at any point. It doesn't have to be on topic. It can just be on anything that you've just been chewing on the past couple of weeks.
Okay.
Well, let's see, we're 5 minutes after. I guess, Bree, you want to just get started?
Yeah. I think Kelly, you might be the only joiner. Sometimes it's hit or miss. You never know.
Okay.
Well, Kelly, where are you? Kelly Jones / AKA Elliot Rosenberg. Where are you tuning in from?
I live in Irwin, Colorado, which is right outside of Crescent View.
Yeah, okay, cool. Nice. Oh yeah, okay. So then we were just talking about, because Bree is in Gunnison and I'm down here in the Front Range, and I was like, oh, we could do some botany. And Bree was like, yes, well, you can. It's not still under snow where we are here, but imagine you're in the same position. You're like, I can
Like
botany.
how much snow's out where you are, Kelly? Are you guys still like 5 feet deep?
Oh no, we're probably more than that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, out in the fields where there hasn't been wind drifting, or where there's not north facing aspects of homes, there's probably about 6 feet of condensed snow.
It's so crazy. The kids
Yeah.
still can't play soccer up in town. It's been like a shit show because none of the fields, like they even tried to dig out the CB South field. It's still not like adequate enough.
Yeah, the temperatures just haven't been getting very warm.
No. So, but they got to play this weekend. They played in Gunny, so it was good.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
But yeah, she's up in the Mecca land, cat. She's right in it.
You're gonna have such a good mushroom year. That's gonna be the balance of this, is that you're gonna have insane flowers.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Flowers and much. Well, Kelly, we were gonna get started with some basic water extraction and talk about infusions and ratios in a little bit, but we also want to make sure that everybody has a good idea of kind of how to access the course and how to kind of get into Materia Medica. Do you have any questions around kind of trying out plants or kind of, yeah, anything from the last couple of weeks that you feel like you've got questions about first?
Well, one of the things I was trying to figure out on my own, and of course was just like getting on YouTube and listening to like pronunciation of the Latin names. I just don't know how you guys like to pronounce them, if it's similar to what I was hearing on YouTube, or because there was that whole section on trying to learn the Latin names of certain plants. Am I saying that right? Is it the Latin names?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Brie and I have a pretty similar take, which is like, just say all the letters and say it like you mean it, like, so it doesn't, it's a botanical Latin is a odd little creature because it was never meant to be a spoken language.
Okay.
And so there's some rules of pronunciation in relationship to Latin that are out there that like scholars will use, but pronounce everything as best you can.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who pronounce things slightly differently, like there's slightly different Latin pronunciation conventions.
Okay.
But there's like let's see who's in here the first week. Urtica dioica. It could be urtica or urtica or urtica. The emphasis can kind of go wherever you want. But really it's all about just kind of saying all the letters.
Okay.
The mostly botanical Latin was meant to be a written language for scientists to kind of understand on different continents what they were talking about and what they weren't talking about, as opposed to just common names. Because you could have like, oh my God, there's so many different sages, for instance. Even in this first week, there's a bunch of plants that are, one of the names for yarrow, which I think is in this first week, is woundwort. There's like, I don't know, 20 plus plants that are woundwort. Anyway, all that to say, it kind of doesn't matter in relationship to herbalism, the exact pronunciation, and everybody's got like just a slightly different emphasis that they'll put on things. So I'm happy I'll post something in the chat maybe here. I'll see if I can find my Latin pronunciation link.
I named my kid Salix, and it's probably like supposed to be Salix, but I don't like the name that. I don't like Salix. So I say Salix.
Yeah, well, like, just with the terms we've been using, like the Latin word for rose. I mean, would you guys say rosaceae or rose? How would you guys pronounce that?
For the rose family, Rosaceae or
okay.
What do you say, Kat? Kat and I always pronounce these differently than each other.
I say rosaceae.
Rosaceae. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one, yeah. Rosaceae. You wouldn't do an I. The E at the end of Latin is usually an E.
Okay.
Instead of like an I.
Just rosaceae or rosaceae. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's rosaceae. If Kelly, you decide to like take this a lot further and you're like, I'm going to become a botanist, then you maybe would have to, start thinking a little more carefully about pronunciation, because you'll have some like snooty, botanical people who are going to be like, actually, it's officinalis, not officinalis, but I don't know. You're amongst your friends here, and really, and a lot of the herbalists that you'll speak to, you'll hear that too. We're kind of just like, oh yeah, we get what you mean, like geranium versus geranium. It's not a big deal.
Okay, perfect. Well, I guess one of the other things that I wanted to ask is, I got to the part about like the measurements, and you guys were talking about doing it in parts. like all the little recipes that you guys have in the book, and it says, you know, a half an ounce or 1 ounce, is that ounce per like liquid, or is that per weight, or do I just, is it supposed to be 1 ounce is going to be 2 tablespoons? I'm just kind of confused now on how to make those recipes.
Totally. So like you're looking at the tea recipes. I think
Yeah.
most of the tea recipes are by weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll give you we're, you know, kind of counting on everybody having either being able to roughly estimate. There's a chart that we have, I think it's in week 4 or 5, where we give you a little bit of a conversion for like if you have super floofy material, kind of roughly what an ounce of that looks like one weight, you know, an ounce by weight, kind of what that looks like by volume. So we try to give that to you in like teaspoons, tablespoons, cups, etc.
Okay.
So there is that chart that you can use in there if you don't have a kitchen scale that you can approximate, and it won't give you to like, you know, it'll get you close. You know, you might be off by like, you know, 1/8 of an ounce or something like that. But that chart will give you an idea, and I can just look really quickly to see what that chart is. But that's partly what that chart is there for. And so you don't necessarily have to bring out your kitchen scale. It's fun to bring out if you have a scale, it can be useful when you're first learning herbs to kind of get an idea of roughly like what an ounce of root looks like by weight, something that's pretty dense, versus an ounce of something super floofy like yarrow or like nettle or something like that. Like has higher volume. And actually that's part of what we're going to look at today is like, this is an ounce of rose hips. And it's an ounce by weight of rose hips. And this is an ounce of a floofy sleep tea that I make. That's mostly flowers and leaves. And you can see that there's a pretty big difference in volume.
Yeah, when I ordered all my herbs off, from the little apothecary, I ordered pretty much everything the same ounce. And of course, everything was so different in volume. So I figured that's what it was, but I just didn't know for sure. I haven't gotten to week 5 yet, so that's probably where you guys talk about the differences there. But yeah, I don't have a kitchen scale, but I'm happy to get one if that's what you feel like will help me to kind of learn the differences.
It can at first, and then I think if you're ordering things by like if you ordered 4 ounces, let's say, of like some nettle from Little Herbal, is that kind of like the volumes that you were ordering in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have an idea of like, okay, this is 4 ounces, then you can kind of just start to estimate that, like, if I cut this into fourths, basically.
Okay.
I'll give you an idea of like, okay, this is about an ounce.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hi, Pearl Girl. So, so that's you don't have to have a kitchen scale. You can, if you're working with a smaller volume of things, Kelly, you can kind of just estimate it by.
And if you get used to using like that, you think 2 tablespoons is close to like an ounce kind of measurements, like we go over that too, where that's like more folk methody, where you don't have to be super exact, but you could kind of get your own kind of rhythm of measurements that way.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, and you know the recipes that are there that are like for the teas, for instance, you can also just take the like 1 ounce, 2 ounce, half ounce, etc., and you can just make that into parts, right?
Okay.
So if there's 1 ounce of this, 1 ounce of that, 1 ounce of this, then you can just do equal parts, and it could be like a teaspoon or a tablespoon of everything.
Okay.
Or if you're making larger volumes, you know, like a 1/4 cup of everything. Or if it's different volumes, if it's like 2 ounces, 1 ounce, a half ounce, the same thing. You could be like, all right, like you just make you kind of just figure out what is going to make what you just decide what is going to be your one part, basically. And you could take like, all right, like for the smallest amount that would be in a recipe, you could be like, all right, I'm going to make that a tablespoon, and then just double up or triple up everything else from there.
And then is there a good way to know how much liquid then you would use based off of your measurements, like of water?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I guess let's just go into the water extraction side of things. So you're getting into kind of infusions basically, right? And washes and baths kind of in that week 4. And then into week 5, starting getting into more of that. there's a couple of different pieces in relationship to like kind of deciding what you're making, basically. So whether you're making something that's more of a beverage tea or more of a medicinal infusion, which is kind of more of the recipes that we have on there. Most of the time we say 1 part herb to about 30 parts water. And usually that measurement is, we're talking about like an ounce by weight of herb, let's say, to about 30 ounces of water. And that like that weight, it's a weight to volume measurement, is a slightly more exact way to be creating your medicines. So you can like these preparations that we've got here. So this is about, like, you can see that this is a quart jar. It's about 1 liter. And I've got a bunch of really, really floofy herbs here, and that's about 1 ounce of herb, and that's filling like almost 1/3 of my jar. And so then I could add, and actually I'm gonna do this now because this is my sleep tea for tonight. We could take, you know, something like this and just add a whole bunch of just boiled water. And so I'm gonna add roughly about 30 ounces to this. And that'll give me a really strong, about 30 ounces of really, really strong infusion for sleep or digestion or whatever it is that you're going for. So as far as how much to use, you can be a little bit more exact, or like what Bree was talking about, you can kind of just go a little bit more by instinct, and have more of a folk method about it. Do you want to speak a little bit to that, Bree?
Yeah, so it's like you can kind of start to, like, you see the range of jars that you have, and the different levels that they are, and you kind of just start to get used to knowing roots are heavier, berries are heavier, fluffier things are like petals and leaf and maybe stem or something like that. And so you just start to get kind of like your own gauge on the plants, and then you'll start to be able to know, even from like once you start making it a few times, like that's what 2 ounces of nettles looks like, you know, versus like a root like Oregon grape, what 1 ounce of that to 2 ounces of that would look like. And you kind of just go from there, and that's how you kind of become more of the folk herbalist, is that you're kind of cataloging stuff a little bit more because you're getting so acquainted with the plants. And so you're taking it out of like the scientific realm of like, we need these exact measurements to make the medicine, and you're taking it into the realm of like, well, we know that this much would be good for us and that these quantities look about right, and we've done this before. So it becomes a little more culinary-esque with the folk methods, where you're kind of gauging it based on previous knowledge a little bit, I feel like. So you always kind of start a little bit as like the scientific herbalist because you don't know anything. And so that's where like the kitchen scale can come into play to kind of give you those boundaries of like learning what weights even look like. What does a cut, where measuring cups even come in? Like, what does a 1/2 cup of herbs look like compared to 2 ounces of herbs? Is that the same thing for a lot of herbs? Because some people like using cups instead of, you know, weighing stuff, like using a spoon that way. And so is it wrong to put 3 ounces instead of 2 ounces in? No, you know, usually not. It's going to be something where it could be like a flavor thing where it's like, whoa, that was a lot of like peppermint, or that was like really astringent to put that in there. And then, you know, to taper it off again, like, okay, over 2 ounces, which was too much, I should stick to the recipe. But then again, that's going back to like becoming more of a folk herbalism. So does that make sense? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
want to start with the baseline, and then you can get crazy.
Okay.
But then you actually make sense. You can like be a little more artistic with it.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then one more thing, because I am more of a sciencey person. When you put the water in, Kat, was that a liquid ounce, or did you actually weigh that on the scale?
You don't have to go that exact.
Okay.
It's just by volume.
Okay,
That's
just by volume. Okay.
Yeah. So if you are comfortable with more of the kind of a little bit more of like exact measurement language, it's that herb is the weight, like in the ratio. If we're talking about making a 1 to 30 extraction, the lowest number is usually the herb, and that's usually weight.
Okay.
And we'll usually say, like, when we're talking about the different extractions, we'll somehow indicate whether or not it's weight to volume or volume to volume with a number of the different medicine making pieces throughout the course. Because we'll also talk about volume to volume extraction. You could totally do it that way too. And that's what doesn't require a scale, you know.
Okay.
So that's like you can go more by instinct.
Okay.
And a lot of that, the herbs that we've given you, unless you have some really wildly paradoxical effect, they're not going to be herbs that you can't experiment with. We specifically pick them so that they're things you can kind of just play around with and try.
Okay.
And so that's, part of the culinary piece that Brianna's talking about is making a tea and then tasting it. And tasting it, we call it organoleptics, which is basically just using your sense of taste, your sense of smell, and then also your body perception. So if you're trying to make something for a sore throat, or you're trying to make something for sleep, part of it is, does it work? So like, ooh, that didn't work super well. Like, one of the things that you can adjust is how strong you make your tea.
Okay.
So like when I make my sleep teas, I make it so that it's really quite strong. And like, this is enough for both my partner and I to have 2 cups of tea, basically. And I know that this is actually probably even a little bit stronger than 1 to 30 maybe, but I make it and I steep it for like 2 hours. I try to do that, do it usually while we're making dinner or something like that. So anyway, the point being, like, along with the ratios and trying to play with that and saying like, oh, how strong can I make this? You can also start to play around with how long you actually infuse it. So like this is our classic standard of a water infusion that can also kind of be a factor in how you start to experiment, right? Beyond just weight to volume experiments or trying to play with just volume to volume, like a cup of herb to so many cups of water.
Okay. And then after you finished with your herb with that particular infusion, if you wanted to reuse it, would you then like double the time you steeped it, or would you just not reuse it, or do you ever do that?
Mostly we don't reuse it.
Okay.
If you've done it right.
I re-steep my teas twice to sometimes 3 times. Is that what you're asking? Like if you can reuse?
Yeah.
I'm a re-steeper. I think there's a little jostle you can get out at least a second time. With chais, sometimes I do it a third time even.
Okay, do you then like if you steeped it first time for 25 minutes, the second time would you steep it for 50?
Less. No, I would steep it for less that second time because the herbs have already been agitated enough that like it's pulled most of everything out of there. And so that last steep, that second steep, I almost think of it as like a wash. Like it's kind of like washing the herbs and getting like the rest of it out of there. So it's not going to be as strong. And I don't always remember to do it, but sometimes I just feel like it's a waste to not give it just a little bit of another pour over.
Okay.
Especially with something like hibiscus. Like there's some herbs that just keep bleeding herb out, and some are pretty spent after that first pull over. So think things like berries and roots. If they're in a tea blender powdered in there, like think of a chai. They hold a stronger medicine to them than things like nettle or like alfalfa or something that's really not even aromatic.
Okay.
And then like more aromatic plants like rosemary or even like rose or something that is even more a little bit delicate, you'll still taste it, or lavender, you'll still taste it in that second pour. You'll feel those aromatics coming out. So yeah, aromatics and like rooty berry things, barks, you'll get a little bit more of a second, maybe a third strain from, but plants, I don't want to call them weaker plants, but things that are more like leafy, where it just like they kind of just get spent in that first strain. You won't use as much or notice as much.
And then would you do your second steep in the same day, or could you?
Yeah, I do it like right after.
Right after, okay.
Yeah. Like it's like fresh. It's like I think of it as like the herbs are like kind of activated still from that first steep. And so then I'll use it again a little bit.
Okay.
But
thank you.
But it's like it's more just because I feel wasteful.
Yeah.
Well, you can use it for other things too, like I think this is at one of our last lives we were talking about this. Brianna and I were at a conference once, and I had this bundle of
Yeah.
called Siberian elm. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it. It's kind of like more in the lowlands around Colorado, but it's a super gooey, really lovely, what we call a demulcent. So it's super moistening, like kind of in the same realm as aloe, in the way that like that's super soothing, like to the skin or to the gut, etc. And I had this one piece of bark and just kept reinfusing it over the course of like days and days. And that's one of those herbs, like what Brianna's talking about, is like it has more to give. But it's a bark, it's a sturdy thing that like, and I mostly just have, when I'm talking about stuff like this, where it's like leaves and flowers and things like that, it is mostly spent. And if you have something like that you're trying to get something else out of, right? You're trying to get more of like the tannins or like the dark, more astringent substances out of, or you've got something that's really hard and aromatic. Instead of doing an infusion, you can just do something called a decoction. I don't know if you've gotten to that phase yet of the course where we talk about water extractions and like infusions versus decoctions. Have you gotten there yet?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, okay. So then if you have something that is a bit more giving, right, and that like can actually, like, we're talking about like reishi mushroom, or what would be there in the first week, really any of our like rose hips or our like harder roots, etc., that makes them kind of more of a candidate for decocting and basically simmering a little bit more. And those are things you can just leave in a crock pot and just simmer for days. Things like that, I've just had, if you're familiar with reishi, it's a really like hard mushroom. And I'll just have that in the wintertime, just kind of in a crock pot steeping in the background, and it'll just continually be steeping all week.
Okay.
The main issue, Brianna was talking about reusing your herbs in the same day. The main issue with things that are more leafy, or that you're not continually reheating, is that unless you're being really careful about how you're preserving them, they do have a tendency to spoil.
Okay.
Because you're basically making, you could be starting to make the, a bit of compost if you're not careful, because we have the boiling water over the herb, and that starts to like break everything down and pull all of the constituents of the plant and like all the aromatics and the goodies that you want inside of the leaves or the flowers or whatever. It starts to pull it out, but it also starts to break the leaf, or whatever the matter is, whatever the herb is, starts to break it down. And of course, you're introducing water into an environment with bacteria, which is just like, it's a breeding ground. Okay. So if you are going to reuse it in a day, usually like I'll make this sleep steep, and then we'll drink it, and then we won't reinfuse it. It'll be like in the bottom of our press pot. And I won't necessarily wash it out every night afterwards. I'll kind of like leave it until the morning. And usually by the morning, it's starting to get like a little bit of funk. Okay. Because it's kind of like if you were to like pour water over lettuce or something like that, like hot water over lettuce, and then you were going to leave it out overnight, like it would start to get funky and break down. So the same thing applies with actually not just any of our leafy matter, but with anything that we make an infusion out of. Decoctions are a little different because it's kind of like making stock or soup or something, where it's just constantly boiling. And so you're constantly preventing any fungi or bacteria or anything like that from colonizing that, like your little pot of tea. But when we're talking about infusions, certainly you're looking at like, within the day, you're going to need to like either strain it and drink it, or find some way of preserving it. So you can kind of like that Siberian elm bark that I was talking about, or any of your like the herbs from the first week, like marshmallow or something like that. You'll just need to, if you want to extract it more, like put it in the fridge or something like that. And it usually lasts for like a couple of days. You can kind of just open your jar and smell it and be like, still smells like herb and not like funk. Great. And then just strain it from there and drink it. But that's just another couple of factors to consider with your water extractions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see what else. This is great. You're asking all the right questions, Kelly. So this is a lot of the stuff that we were thinking about covering anyway.
Okay, good.
let's see, what else is important here? Oh, this part. So covering your tea, especially if you've got something like aromatics. So like the classic thing that we think of, or I think about when drinking tea is like somebody with a mug and there's just this lovely steam wafting up into your face. Which is great. Like part of that medicine of tea is actually looking at it and smelling it. But when we're trying to make something that's a little bit more potent medicinally, one of the things that we want to do is actually make sure that we preserve all of those essential oils, all those volatile oils, everything that we can smell, all of our aromatics. We actually want to trap it back in. And you can see like this is, you can't really see steam coming off of this. It's kind of springy, summery down here, so it's not super cold. But if all I can smell, I can do a little smell-o-vision. Like I can smell the chamomile and I can smell the rose. But if I let this just sit, I mean, I'll still get a decent amount of medicine. But if I cover it, then that means that all of those aromatics, those medicinal compounds are going back into the tea, which is what can make it a little bit stronger if you're trying to do more than just kind of get those aromatics into your sinuses and your lungs, which can be something that you're trying to go for, right? That's what we're trying to do with steams and baths, etc. But when we're trying to go for something that's going to like help us sleep or be like a strong immune tea, ideally, you put it in a press pot or you put it in a jar with a lid on it so that those aromatics don't escape.
Okay. I have been putting them in a jar because I read that in the book, because I have a jar with a lid. And one of the things that I was a little concerned with is if the jar would potentially break because of the heat of the water. Do you guys ever have that happen?
It can happen, yeah.
Okay.
One trick is to put like a metal spoon in there first while you're
Okay.
pouring it in the hot water so the conduction rate slows into the spoon a little bit.
Oh,
You can heat your jar too. I mean, the most of the jars that we recommend use canning jars that can tolerate heat. Like they're designed to tolerate heat.
Like usually
But
the only time I've seen it happen is like if the jar's been heated a lot or something and it just will like crack
okay.
randomly. So I have seen it happen, but I do use jars still.
Okay.
there are occasionally duds. Like they're made for canning, they're made for like being immersed in boiling water.
Yeah.
But either sometimes there's duds, and then sometimes if you like maybe you live in Irwin and it's really cold outside and your jar is really cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your jar is really cold, if you're like, oh yeah, you reach into your cupboard and that's the case, then you can actually just like pour a little bit of water in there and then just kind of swirl it around and preheat your jar a little bit so you don't have that heat shock that can happen too. And
So
like
if I didn't think-
let's see what else. So I think we talked about ratios. Oh, another thing is you don't always have to use hot water. Some things actually extract a bit better in cold water. The marshmallow that was in the first week, marshmallow root especially, or anything with that kind of like delightful slimy goopiness that we want for like moistening our sinuses and our guts and our skin. Those are all ones that actually extract more of that gooiness if you put it in cooler water, which we say cold water extractions, we kind of mean like either water that's cold or water that's just room temperature, or like refrigerator temperature.
Okay.
That goop will extract better if the root is immersed, or the root or the leaf, whatever's the slime containing thing, is immersed in cold water and then left for a longer period of time. So
Okay.
that would be like an overnight or like an hour or a couple of hours or even an overnight infusion. Kind of nice to do it overnight, like with and it's not actually just the gooey stuff that it can extract, like gooey herbs, like our marshmallow root will extract better with cool water and with more time. But you could also take something like this, like if I was trying to make a digestive tea that I wanted to like have ready in the morning and just be able to drink throughout the day, I could just take all of my herbs, and instead of using hot boiling water, I could just put lukewarm water on there and leave that overnight. And it'll still get to be like this kind of, you can start to see how this is starting to darken. It'll still extract reasonably well because even though there's not the heat to like break down all the herb, you're using thyme instead to kind of break down all of those cell walls.
Okay. So anytime you're gonna make an infusion with marshmallow, is it best to do a cool infusion? Because if you do a hot one with marshmallow, will it make it not as good as it could be if it was cold, like with other herbs?
No, it'll still pull. It just, yeah. So if you wanted to make, because I mean, like, I don't know, I think about wintertime and like all of us with wood stoves in Colorado or the fire or with central heat or whatever. And you want to try to like make a nice soothing lung tea, a big cup of cold slime in the middle of winter sounds kind of terrible. So,
But
so
it's
that's
so
where like,
good.
yeah. Like is that one of the things in your Salix's school brew?
Yeah, we have
Is that, I think marshmallows in there too,
maybe
right?
root and leaf in there and licorice.
So those are all
I
things
mean,
that
demulcents are in most of our teas because it's so freaking dry here. So
it'll still extract okay though.
It will, okay. Well, you were just, I don't know why, but I did think of another question I wanted to ask. So right now, well, one of the herbs that I did not buy because I was hoping to collect here locally was willow. And is it still okay to collect that right now, or is it already at a point where I can't
It's a
collect
great
it?
collect it.
It's a great time too.
Yeah, I think it's a good time when it's like in the bud season like it is right now. It's just easier to like grab it before it starts to fluff out. So where you are, none of them have gone fluffy yet.
Yeah, and actually we don't really have any willow out here. I'd have to get it in town.
You do. They're just a different type of willow. You have a lot of willows. They're just they're the little waps is what we call them, like in skiing. And so they're all your little all the little like shrubby looking plants that are growing around the creeks are willows.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking of like a
The
tree.
giant
Okay.
trees. Yeah. So
Oh,
we do have willow. Like we mostly have like I think it's at the amygdaloides where it's like the peach willow and they have like the yellow branches on them. But then we actually have like 50 species of willows in the Gunnison Valley. And so that go all the way up to like 12,000 feet. There's like an Arctica, that's like the Arctic willow. It's just a little tiny guy. So you should look up the app. It's kind of fun. Like a good way to get acquainted like with willows in a back way, unless you have another suggestion, Kat. But you could go to bonap.net. It's PONAP.net. Go there. And if you want me to walk you through it right now while you're on the computer, it's kind of fun. So go to bonap.net.
Oh, it's .org. It's .org.
.org. It'll change it for you. So go to .org. And then once that page is open, click on where it says NAPA, North American Plant Atlas. And then click on alphabetically by genus under US county maps. And then let me know if I'm moving too fast. And then you could click on the S there and go down to Salix. And then
where's the genus? What did you say? It was genus? Oh, alphabetically by genus. Got it. Okay.
alphabetically by genus.
Hey, can you share your screen so we can record this? I think you might be able to.
My screen's very chaotic right now.
Oh, I can do it too. Maybe let me share.
I have like literally 90 tabs open. I don't know if people want to see that.
Well, here, share my screen and I'll put it up here and then everybody can see it. Or that's okay if it's hard to find the share button. We can just do it towards the end.
Should I do it? I mean, I'm not embarrassed. My tabs are just a lot.
No, it's okay. It sounds like Kelly, were you able to get to that whole big list of all the
Yeah,
general?
yeah. And then would you go down to willow or?
You go down, so you click on the S and find Salix.
Oh, Salix, okay.
How do I even share if I wanted to share? Share screen.
I think if you click on me in Zoom, if you click on the participants and you click on, like, you'll see me come up, you can just click on my name and let me be like, or enable sharing. It should come up. If you click on me.
I'm just gonna make you host.
Oh, okay, that works too.
That'll make you be able to do it now.
Okay, here we go. Doo-doo. All right, so I'm gonna go back for all the peeps. I'm gonna go back here to where we started. So this is it, Biota of North America program, and we're gonna go to Napa, and we're gonna go to US county maps alphabetically by genus. You're doing great with your instructions, obviously, Bree, because you got there, Kelly. Everybody just show everybody, like, look, it's a thing. It's so neat.
Show everyone that this is a thing. Okay, so we got to Salix, and now, Kelly, if you look at Colorado, and if you know what Gunnison County looks like, you can actually click on the map and it'll bring it bigger, so you could actually like see. So if we went to like Salix Bebiana is actually a really popular little wap willow that we have locally. So Kat, if you clicked on Colorado there, and then Gunnison is like right in the center, big county, biggest county in the state, almost right there. Yes. Click. It'll kind of just show us like, okay, that's there. So you can see how many willows, if you go back out, Kat, that there are like in the United States. There's a ton. I mean, like scroll, like
so many willows.
so many willows. And so it's just a fun way to kind of start getting acquainted with plants this way, especially by genuses, when there are such vast genuses spread out either in just like Colorado or whatever. And then from there, like what I did learning plants, because I didn't have a teacher that really sat with me like this, is I would go and I would have been like, Salix exigua, I see that one is all over the freaking place in the West. I want to know what that looks like. So then I would literally like put that into Google, or I would go get my botany books and I would plant key it out, and find exactly what it looked like or what the characteristics of it were, like the amount of leaf or scales it has on its leaf, or its bud on the tree, or what its leaf shape looked like. And I'd start kind of doing like backwards botany a little bit that way, and start kind of discovering the plants around me here based off of this, or just like knowing like, wow, there are like 6 species in that genus. So I was seeing multiple different arnicas. Like there isn't just one arnica in our mountains. There's like 5, I think. And so you're like, it helps you, like it helps you understand plants and botany, and like that. Yeah, that's why those plants look very similar, but that's also why they look kind of different, is because they're different by their species or something. So anyway, side tangent.
Yeah, no worries. Is cottonwood similar to willow, where it's okay to harvest it before it starts going to the fleece?
Yeah, cottonwood's great right this time of year.
Okay.
And that's another thing. You could go to Populous here on your Bone app and see the different species that we have here locally, which there's just a few. But right now is a great time, right before it comes out to the catkins, because the most medicinal part of those cottonwoods is that bud, that residency bud, that's on the trees right now.
Okay.
Other places of the United States are not as lucky as we are, that we get to have this extended cottonwood season that goes to May. Most people have already fluffed out and their catkins are out, and in a lot of places the leaves are out now. So
okay.
Yeah, we harbor the longest. What else?
Well, actually, I'm curious. So I think we covered all the pieces for water extraction. Let's see, just a basic recap. We talked about preservation and how like you can't, infusions especially, or once you've decocted something and taking it off the stove, they don't usually last much longer than like a couple of days in the fridge. We talked about ratios and kind of that 1 part herb to 30 parts water being a weight to volume measurement. Talked about aromatics and not letting them escape. We talked about decoctions a tiny bit. Have you tried anything yet, Kelly, as far as infusions or decoctions?
Yeah, I've been trying to do like 1 herb a week. I did just mallow by itself. I've done nettle just by itself. I guess that's actually the only 2 I've done with the week. But then I started kind of doing my own concoctions because I got to week 4, and it encourages you to make your own based off of, you know, what you're trying to accomplish. And right now I just have like stubborn phlegm that will not go away. And so I was a little concerned about doing the mallow because it's so moistening. I'm like, I don't know if that's really helping my phlegm problem right now. And so now I'm trying to make my own little infusion today based off a lot of drying and then also some warming herbs because my constitution, I think, is more of the on the cooler side, but then I'm also more moist. So I don't know. I'm just trying it. We'll see what happens.
That's the kind of the perfect curiosity to hold with all this. And if you've got like persistent like stick, I have to ask, is the phlegm stuck? Like, is there a stuckness to it? Or is it pretty okay.
Yeah, it's more like in the morning when I wake up, when I'm brushing my teeth, it's just coming out of my chest. I mean, I don't know, it might be more like, candida related. I don't know, but I'm just trying and seeing if anything will make a difference.
Totally. Well, I mean, we talk about Colorado is kind of it throws a little bit of a wrench in relationship to constitution or working with, kind of more moist seeming conditions just because it is so dry. So if there's like if there's a little bit of stuckness to there, I love the instinct about like warmth. And so you have something that's kind of like damp and cool and stuck, then like having that warmth there is awesome. But then also trying to like get moisture and movement can be a little bit useful. Again, you can kind of just try it. If you're like, you drink mallow and you're like, nope, that feels really gross, and like you get the strong no feeling, then go back to your drying herbs. But it can be nice sometimes to get that, like, to get things moving and flowing, to actually add in a little bit moisture along with your warm herbs, like your ginger, your pine, or you've got fir and spruce all around you. So that's another one that's really like a lovely aromatic respiratory like mover to get things going. When you made your infusions, how long have you been leaving them?
This one I just left for 25 minutes. But I definitely could do more. I mean, I was planning on doing kind of the same infusion for the next couple days. And now that I saw it use teachers at night for like 2 hours, I'm like, oh, then I should do way more.
I mean, you can usually get a good bit of medicine by just leaving it for 25 minutes.
Okay.
But it can be nice to kind of like infuse it for 25 minutes, pour out a little bit for yourself, and then let the rest steep so that you can see if there is a little bit of a difference. This is where we can put on our like witch/mad scientist hats and be like, oh, okay, like let's titrate it a little bit and just try a couple of different preps in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
That's great though. Do you remember which herbs you have in your blend?
Yeah, I'll go grab them. I haven't written down.
It's okay. I was just curious to see what you tried. I'm curious when you've been tasting your herbs, which the beginning herbs are pretty gentle, but curious what you noticed when you took the nettle or the mallow, either in like your tissues or taste or kind of just anything that you felt in your body.
I mean, honestly, I guess I haven't really noticed that yet. I'm still working on it, but yeah, no, I haven't. I don't know. Maybe I don't just sit there and think about it as much as I should. I don't know. I just kind of drink and go about my day. So I haven't really noticed much yet. And I'm Diana knows me from her shop, and I'm definitely a newbie at this. So I'm probably not the best to be the only one on your show today.
No, I like this show.
So
No episode today.
On your show, yes. The Plant Camp live show.
Mm.
I think
But-
that's kind of perfect actually, that you're in that like that beginner's mind phase, because that's like the herbs that you've been trying are actually pretty gentle. So we'd expect that to take, you might notice a few little things, like you can kind of tune into like what's happening in the inside of your mouth. Like even if it's only for like the first sip of your tea and then you kind of just go about it and drink it the rest of the day. You can kind of take some time and like swish it in your mouth. Like think like somebody doing like some sort of wine tasting, like take that kind of approach and be like, oh, how is this affecting my tissues? Like, does it feel more drying or more moistening? That kind of stuff. Or like, does my mouth feel like a little bit tighter, or does it feel more coated, or like that kind of stuff is, I think, the stuff that we feel, but we don't realize that we're feeling it. But then somebody asks and we're like, oh yeah, I actually do feel something. So it's okay to not feel like, a big splash in the pond when you're taking that kind of gentle stuff. And you'll just start noticing more and more as you take it too. Like, and as you're getting more relationship with the herbs.
Okay, yeah, that's a good tip. I didn't think about just like swishing it around and just thinking about what happens in my mouth. I was kind of thinking about more, I don't know, if like if you drink, well, and that's another thing. I'm somebody who I don't really drink alcohol. I don't drink tea really ever. I don't do a lot of those things, but I really like chocolate. And I have noticed over the years that if I've tried to cut back on chocolate, when I have chocolate, I get that, it does something to your brain to where it's like, oh, wow, I'm happy I got to have this piece of chocolate and now I feel satisfied. So I just think it's going to take me a little bit longer to realize this with herbs, just because I haven't been one to drink tea in the past. Does that make sense?
Totally. No, absolutely. And I think that a lot of the time we're used to like actual Camellia sinensis, like tea from China tea, or we're drinking coffee or mate even, or something like that, where we're used to this like zing, or like it's some, people associate herbs with like juices where it's like this like big punch of like chlorophyll and sugar and everything else. But the more subtle stuff does take a little bit more time to tell, but you can start to fine tune your senses to really be like, oh, actually what's happening? And then from there, once you can kind of go from the mouth outwards and be like, oh, what is this doing to my mood or to my guts or my digestion in general, like throughout a day, throughout a week. Mallow and nettle both are things that we think of like those are everyday kind of drinkers. We have a friend who's a midwife, and she'll actually recommend that folks who are pregnant just replace their water consumption with nettle and mallow, right? With like these like really nutritious teas, because it's just hard to get nutrition when you're pregnant. But that gives you an idea of like how gentle those herbs are. I mean, they're still powerful, but their medicine is a little less obvious.
Okay, well, maybe that's
I'll
why
have to say it's okay.
And then the concoction, or not concoction, but the infusion that I did today, I was basing it off of you guys have an herbal energetics page, and it talks about like heating herbs, cooling herbs, drying herbs, and moistening herbs. And again, I was just thinking more of like the phlegm that I have pot. And so I did some nettle, rose, and is it mullein?
Mullein.
Okay, mullein, and then I did some raspberry with some yarrow, and then I did a little bit of heating herbs. I did some catnip and some valerian, and so far I haven't died, so it wasn't too bad. And I just I wasn't at the time. I was just doing it more off of tablespoons for ounces. So my ounces, of course, are all messed up because some of them were more floofy than others.
And that's okay. You might have a slightly different ratio maybe than what you were anticipating.
Right.
That's okay too. Let's just tomorrow try a different batch. Like if you've got mullein is like the floofiest of the floof. So if you're like, I want more of this expectorant drying act.
Right. Yeah, that's my dog. Sorry. She
Oh,
needs,
okay, I was like, Kelly, are you okay?
she needs a little
I was
mellow
like,
in
that's
her
a
life.
dog.
I'm like, that's too much Mullen. Too much Mullen, Kim. Draw back, draw
Don't
back.
stop it, Kelly. Do not snort the Mullen.
Sorry. That's my 15-year-old dog who has
Baby.
like throat issues.
He has really good timing, like his comedic timing. Well, that's kind of the perfect example, Kelly. Not the coughing dog, but the, like, if you have Mullen and you have, you know, Nettle, like those are like, oh, like you might need to like double up or triple up on those compared to like if you're going to leave valerian in your formula and kind of like have a nice little body sedative moment, you might just use 1 scoop of that to every like 2 or 3 or even 4 scoops of Mullen, because Mullen is just like, you know,
Sure.
the uber floof. So
Okay.
that's a perfect example. Like, you know, don't worry about ounces too much. Just kind of like you can kind of start to taste your ratios and also start to look into like, all right, this bag is this heavy and it's this size, and this bag is this heavy and it's this size, and that'll give you an idea of how to start adjusting your ratios that you're just doing tablespoon by tablespoon.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, we're about to wrap up. Kelly, do you have any other questions or dogs
No.
to share with us?
Yeah, no, thank you guys for answering all my questions. And then, yeah, I look forward to the next month, and yeah, it's fun to learn this stuff. I originally got into this just kind of more for plant identification, which I know really isn't helping me not that much with that, but at least I'm learning about, I don't know, just, you know, the petals and the stems and the leaves and yeah, and I want to learn about the medicinal properties too. So yeah, again, just hopefully next time you guys will have a student that has a little bit better of a background than I do.
That's okay. You asked the perfect question.
Perfect.
Okay, well, good.
Let it right along.
Perfect.
All right, Kelly. Well, if you have more questions, you know, we're always encouraging everybody to like put questions in the comments. We really actually do look at the comments, I promise. And we can get back to you. We usually get back to you within like a couple of days with any questions you've got.
Yeah, no, you guys have already answered. Well, you've always been really timely on that, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks for my private little
Your private sesh.
session today.
Happy thaw.
Yeah. Happy May Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beltane, whatever you celebrate.
Yeah, awesome.
Veils are really thin tomorrow. It's like Halloween on the other side of the year, so you can create some good magic.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you ladies have a good rest of your night, and thanks again.
Yeah, you too.
Okay,
Say hi to
bye. I will. Thanks, Brianna. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, there's this gal Vicky in the waiting room. Should we let her in and say, hey, we're done?
Did I not see her?
Vicky's it's because I'm host.
Oh.
Should we
No,
let
I
her
would
in?
say it's over. I would just.
We're just ending. Okay.
When did you know? I mean, I didn't.